Yesterday we discussed the body fluid compartment, and I hope you people can still remember that we said that 60% of the adult male body is water, and that these water are in different compartments. Some are in the cell, so we refer to these as intracellular, and some are outside of the cell, so this is extracellular. I already forwarded the notes to the class, so you should do well to read the notes. Okay, today we'll be taking a look at the central nervous system. Of course, you know what. Sorry, the nervous system. A part of the nervous system is now the central nervous system. So, but generally, we'll be taking a look at the nervous system. Yesterday, we also discussed homeostasis, and I told you that homeostasis is the maintenance of a fairly constant internal environment. Now, who remembers or who can remember what this internal environment is? What did I say the internal environment is? Anybody? I said the internal environment. What?
Extracellular.
Yeah, the extracellular fluid compartment. That's what the internal environment represents. Now, so you see, the nervous system, alongside the endocrine system, maintains homeostasis in the body. Okay. The difference between the nervous system and the endocrine system is that the nervous system responds rapidly. Okay, while the endocrine system may take time before it responds, but of course the nervous system responds very rapidly. That's fast response. An example, I'll give you an example. Now, if you mistakenly sit on a pin, now you jump up immediately. Now, the reason why you are jumping up is because your brain processes the information very rapidly. So that's why you jump up immediately. Okay. So the nervous system responds to changes very rapidly. So today we'll be taking a look at the nervous system, and of course, you know the two major divisions of the nervous system. We have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system. What does the central nervous system comprise of? Anybody? What does it comprise of? The brain and the spinal cord. The brain continues into the spinal cord with what structure? Let me see if I can draw. Let me see if I can draw on this Microsoft Word. Draw. I can't draw. Okay, so who can tell us? Is the medulla oblongata anyway? That's what I'm looking for. Is the medulla oblongata. The brain continues into the spinal cord via the medulla oblongata. Okay. Then the other part that we have is the peripheral nervous system. Now, as the name suggests, the peripheral nervous system is just made of nerves all over your body. Okay, as you can see, these nerves can either emerge from your brain or they can emerge from your spinal cord. Okay, now, and that's why the nerves can now be said to be either cranial nerves or spinal nerves. Okay? You have nerves all over your body, and that's why if I touch you, okay, you will feel it. The reason why you feel it is because you have nerves all over your body. In fact, what makes us feel pleasure is because of nerves all over our body. Okay, some part of our body are richly supplied with nerves, and so they can feel some certain pleasure. The major division of the nervous system is just two: central nervous system, like I said, and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, and the central nervous system, they actually act as the center, and what they do is just to interpret incoming sensory information and give response. So, like I told you, that the peripheral nervous system is now all the nerves outside the central nervous system. Okay. Now, this peripheral nervous system has division too. We can divide the peripheral nervous system. Although I said it contains nerves and these nerves can be either cranial nerves or spinal nerve. Now, when we say cranial nerve, it means that the nerve is coming from the brain. Okay, of course, you know what cranial cavity means. Okay, what does cranial cavity contain? Anybody that can tell us, what does the cranial cavity contain?
Brain.
Yeah, the brain. Okay, so when we say cranial nerves, how many cranial nerves do we have? How many cranial nerves? This peripheral nervous system can further be divided functionally, okay, into we have the sensory division. Now, when we say sensory, it means the information that is going from your body to the spinal cord and brain. That's sense. Now, another word for sensory is afferent. Afferent. Okay, we have answered a question similar to this, that the sensory division is also known as dash. It's also known as the afferent division. So don't forget, when they say sensory, that's afferent. Okay. So please note, the reason why I'm emphasizing that another word for sensory means afferent is because it has come out in the exam before that the sensory division is also known as the afferent division. Okay, so this helps you transmit information from your from your body to the brain. Okay, now this sensory division now has two subclasses. We have the somatic sensory nerves and we have the visceral sensory nerves. Now, anytime you hear somatic, it has to do with the body. So we now have the visceral sensory fibers. In anatomy, anytime you hear the word viscera, it has to do with your internal organs, your visceral organs. Okay, so who can give me an example of a visceral organ? This is anatomy. What? Kidneys, yeah, kidneys. Another one. Another one.
Liver.
Liver. Great. Another one. What? What?
Lungs.
Okay, another one.
Lungs.
Yeah, I heard you. Another one.
Spleen.
Yeah, spleen. Everything in your GIT is an example of visceral organ. Okay, so now it is because of these visceral sensory nerves. That's why you can feel that you are hungry. Okay, so now apart from the sensory division of the peripheral nervous system, we also have the motor division or the efferent. Now this motor division now sends information from the brain to the body. Okay, so let's do it this way so that you guys can, so that I will simplify it. Let's do it this way. Now this is how it is. We have information going from the body to the brain, okay, and we have information response going from the brain to the body. Now, give me let's take an example. If you sit on a pin, okay, you feel prick and pain. Okay, now then your response will be that you jump up. Okay, now so what is responsible for sending information from your body to your brain is the sensory or afferent. Sensory or the afferent is responsible for sending information from your body to your brain. Okay, any question? Does anyone have any question? So from your brain to your body, which nerves are responsible? What do we call them? From your brain to your body, which nerves are responsible? What do we call them?
Efferent.
Efferent, exactly. Efferent. What's another word for them? Or what's another word for that efferent?
Motor division.
Motor division. Okay. So, sensory carries information from your body to your brain, and we call it afferent. afferent. Then from your brain to your body, we have efferent. Okay. Now, so your peripheral nervous system also has another division, particularly this motor. Okay. This motor has other divisions. So this division includes the just like the sensory division too. The motor division also has some. We have the somatic nervous system. Of course, you know that when we say somatic, it will involve the skeletal muscles. Okay. Then we now have the autonomic nervous system. It's also a part of the peripheral nervous system. Now, from the name auto, it means that whatever it is doing is automatic. Automatic. You cannot control it. It will happen. That's why it is autonomic nervous system. You cannot control your heart rate. Can you? Can anybody stop his or her heart from beating now? Can you stop
No.
your so it is under the control of the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic means automatic, means that it happens, it's beyond your control. When you eat your food, can you tell your intestine when to digest the food? That wait, this food I just swallowed now, don't digest it. Is it possible?
Oh, no.
Okay, so it's not possible. So digestion too is a part of, is under the control of the autonomic nervous system. It happens. You don't control it. Okay. Now, although you may cease your breathing for a while, okay, but actually you cannot control your respiratory rate. By respiratory rate, we mean the amount, like the capacity of your lung, the amount of air your lung can take in and all of that. You cannot control it. So all these are under the division of the autonomic nervous system. Now, the somatic nervous system, you can control it, okay? But the autonomic nervous system, you cannot control. You can control this one, somatic nervous system, okay? Because it involves the skeletal muscle. So now, this autonomic nervous system. Now, you guys can see that there are so many divisions. Okay, so don't get them confused. The autonomic nervous system can now be divided into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Okay, now the sympathetic is FFF. When we say FFF, it means flight, fright, and fight. Let me put it there. Flight, fright, or fear. Okay, or flight. That's the sympathetic sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. Do you know what this means? Flight, fight, and fear. If a lion comes from the provost office, breaks that plywood that they used to demarcate the provost office and the class and the classrooms, okay, and that lion enters from, okay, let me say it like this. Let me start from here. Ordinarily, if you tell Motunrayo that jump from the window downstairs, you know, Motunrayo will look at you and say, are you mad? Why will I jump? Okay, now that's because nothing is happening. But if a lion comes out from provost office, breaks the plywood that demarcates the provost office and the classrooms, okay, and that lion enters your class, will Motunrayo jump down through the window, or will she not jump down through the window?
She will jump down.
She will jump down. In fact, okay, so then we also have the parasympathetic division. Now, this parasympathetic division is about rest and digestion. That's what this is all about. It's not about fight, flight, or fright. Okay, now so let me take all our divisions from start to finish again. So I told you that the nervous system is broadly classified into two. Who remembers the two? That's the first classification.
Central nervous system and peripheral nervous system.
Excellent. Central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Okay. Now, so, what does the central nervous system contain?
Brain and spinal cord.
Okay, brain and spinal cord. Excellent. Okay. So, who can tell us the division of the peripheral nervous system?
Sensory and motor division.
Yes, excellent. Sensory and motor division. Okay. So, who can also further classify the sensory and the motor division?
The sensory division, we have somatic and
Viscera. Is viscera.
viscera. Viscera. So under motor, we have somatic and autonomic nervous system.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. Now, so the autonomic nervous system is now further classified into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Now, the sympathetic makes you fly, makes you fight. Now, and the reason for that is because of adrenaline. Okay, the sympathetic nervous system involves adrenaline. Now, and adrenaline even makes you fear.
Sir,
Yes.
I thought adrenaline is supposed to be on the endocrine system. Is it not?
Yes, adrenaline is under endocrine system, but there are compounds, there are chemicals in your body that have dual functions. They have more than one function. They can be hormones and they can be something else. It also functions as a neurotransmitter in your brain. It helps to transmit information. There are quite a number of neurotransmitters. We have adrenaline, we have acetylcholine, we have serotonin, histamine. There are quite a number of them. Dopamine, so many. Okay, so adrenaline also functions as a neurotransmitter in your central nervous system. Is that taken? In fact, that's why we have adrenergic neurons. We have noradrenergic neurons. Okay, so let's leave the classification and move to the next thing. Any other question? If there are gray areas, if you have, if you want me to make clarifications. So let's go to the cells of the nervous system. Of course, you know that the cell is the basic functional and structural unit of any system. Okay, so we have some cells too in the nervous system. Now, there are two main types of cells that we have in the nervous system. We have the neurons. Okay, the neurons are the main cells. They are the basic functional and structural unit of the nervous system. Then we now have supporting cells. These supporting cells are known as neuroglia. Okay, neuroglia, or you call them glia cells. Now, the neurons are the ones that transmit information, but the neuroglia are supporting cells. We have several of them. So, and I will explain the role of each one. Now, so this is the basic structure of a neuron. Okay, you see all these things. These ones, they are called dendrites. All these extensions, they are called dendrites. Then this purple stained burst-like structure is the nucleus of your neuron. All right. Now, then we now have the axon hillock. This axon hillock is like the neck of the neuron. Okay, although the axon extends until you get to the end of the neuron. Now, we have, okay, like I said the axon extends. The neck of the axon is called the axon hillock. Now, you see all this blue-like structure that surrounds the axon. They are called myelin sheath. Myelin sheath. Okay, so any neuron that has a myelin sheath, or where you can see the nodes like this, is called myelinated neuron. You can also have unmyelinated neuron, but for now, let's leave this. So, like I said, the neurons are the basic unit of the nervous system. They are the basic structural and functional units of the nervous system, and what they do is majorly is to transmit information, to generate impulses. Now, there are two ways your brain transmits information. Does anyone know? Does anyone know the two ways your brain transmits information?
Electrical and
Can you raise hand? Israel, I know you.
electrical and chemical.
Electrical and chemical. That's how the brain transmits information. You can transmit it electrically, okay, and you can transmit it chemically using neurotransmitters. In fact, sometimes when the electrical activity is too much, there can also be problem. That's why you have epilepsy. How many of you know epilepsy? Who knows epilepsy? Epilepsy is as a result of excess firing. Now, that's why if you see somebody that has an epileptic seizure, do you know epilepsy? Do you people know what epilepsy is? Israel, do you know epilepsy?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. That's why you see that anybody that is having an epileptic seizure will be shaking. The person will be shaking like the person is electrocuted. Big battle for work bay life wire. That's how the person will be shaking, because it has to do with the electrical activity of the brain. The brain is firing excessively. All right, that's what is happening in the brain. So, and that's why if you see an epileptic seizure, it's always like the person is electrocuted. Okay, so I was going to show you how the neurons transmit their information. So let me project. Let me bring this down and show you. Like I said, they transmit chemically, and they can also transmit electrically. Okay, so let's see what is happening here. Now let's take this for instance. Okay, now, okay, you see this is the end of an axon. Let me see how bold this picture is. It's not that bold. Okay, don't worry, I'll work on it. Yes, this is better. This is better. Now, I'm going to really take my time on this nervous system, because if I do not take my time, you will not understand quite a number of things. Now, you know that this is where a neuron starts. Okay, here, this is the dendrite. What is this structure? Anybody? What is this structure?
Nucleus.
Yeah, the nucleus. Yeah. So this is the neck of the axon. This is the axon hillock. All right. Now go down. Then we have the axon end. Then you will see some button-like structures here. Okay. Did you see them? These button-like structures.
Yes.
Yeah. They are knobs. They contain neurotransmitters. Okay. They contain neurotransmitter. Now if you see, it's appearing like this place is meeting with the dendrite of the second neuron. Okay, they are actually not meeting. No, there is a space between them, but you can only see that space under the microscope. Okay, now so you see this space between one neuron and another neuron is called synapse. Okay, the space where the tail of one neuron meets with the head of another neuron is called synapse. Okay, let me repeat that again. The space between the meeting point of the tail of a neuron. The tail is not the right word. Okay, if we were in a core anatomy class, I will not say tail. Okay, and the head of another neuron. This is not head. In a core anatomy class, we will say dendrites. That space between them is called the synapse. Now, so see, the neuron before that space is the presynaptic neuron. You know, pre means before. Okay, so it means that this neuron is before this space. Are we on the same page? So that's how we say presynaptic neuron. Then the neuron after that space is called the postsynaptic neuron. All right. Now, so the postsynaptic neuron comes after the meeting point. Then the presynaptic neuron is before the meeting point. So how do these two communicate? Number one, they can communicate chemically. Okay. Now these knobs can release neurotransmitters, and when they release neurotransmitters, examples I gave you: GABA, serotonin, adrenaline, blah blah blah, acetylcholine, like that. Okay, so excellent. When this one releases its neurotransmitter on these dendrites, there are receptors. Okay, so the receptor, the neurotransmitter that is released, will now go and bind to the receptor. Okay, when it binds to the receptor, there will now be an effect. There will be an effect. Okay, so that's what happens. Now, so the neurons can communicate electrically and they can communicate chemically. Now, how do they communicate electrically? That was one of the reasons why I had to teach you fluid yesterday. Now, I will explain how they communicate to you electrically. Yesterday, I told you that what is the major extracellular cation? What is this major extracellular cation?
Sodium.
Sodium, excellent. Now, what is the major intracellular cation?
Chloride. Chlorine.
Cation. Intracellular cation. I didn't say anion.
Potassium.
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 Yes, potassium. Now, so this is how the neurons communicate electrically. This is how they fire. The cell will now open and sodium will come in. At this stage, your neurons will start firing. Okay? Because the normal order has been distorted. The normal order is that sodium should be more outside, potassium should be more inside. But when the neurons open up and takes in sodium, they will start firing. Okay? So anytime sodium is more inside your neuron than outside, those neurons will start firing. In fact, that's why most of the drugs we use for epilepsy are sodium channel blockers. So most of the drugs that we use for epilepsy, they are sodium channel blockers. They block sodium from entering into the neuron. And once they block sodium from entering into the neurons will not fire. Okay? Now, in fact, you see that most patients that are epileptic are also very calm. The reason why they are like that is because we have given them drugs that stops their brain from firing. Okay? Now, this process of sodium entering the neuron is what we call depolarization. Now, the neurons communicate chemically. I've explained that one. They communicate by neurotransmitters. Okay? I've shown you where the neurotransmitters are released. Then the neurons also communicate electrically. And I told you that the way they communicate electrically is by the movement of ions in and out of the cell. We have explained all this: cell body, dendrites, axon. Now, the neurons can be classified into two: myelinated. Myelinated means that they have myelin sheath, and unmyelinated. Now, the thing about neurons is that they are incapable of dividing. They cannot divide. And they require a constant supply of oxygen and glucose for survival. In fact, your brain uses most of the glucose and oxygen you have in your body. Your brain is a very active organ, and it uses most of the glucose and oxygen you have in your body. In fact, that's why it's important that oxygen gets to the brain. Okay? If you have a stroke, and usually what causes it is when you have a blood vessel to your brain being blocked. When that blood vessel is blocked, okay, you may suffer what we call cerebrovascular accident. That's what is called stroke. Okay. Now, that cerebrovascular accident, wherever it affects, if you have a stroke in the left side of your brain, if you have a stroke in the left hemisphere, the right part of your body will be paralyzed. If you have a stroke in the right side of your brain, the left side of your body will be paralyzed. So in essence, the left side of your brain controls the right part of your body, and the right part of your brain controls the left part of your body. So that's how God made it. Now, your neurons cannot multiply. So what are the other cells that we have? We have the supporting cells. Like I said, this is where I'm going to stop today. We have the supporting cells called the neuroglial cells. These cells, they are not the basic functional unit rather, but what they do is to provide structural and metabolic support to the neurons. The funny thing about life is that these ones can now divide. Unlike the neurons cannot divide, but these ones can divide. The neurons cannot multiply, but the neuroglia can multiply. Those ones that are supporting cells can multiply. Okay. So, what are the types of glial cells that we have? We have 5 of them. We have astrocytes, we have oligodendrocytes, we have Schwann cells, we have ependyma cells, and we have microglia. They have their functions. So let me talk about their functions. Now, the astrocytes form the blood-brain barrier with the brain capillaries. Okay, astrocyte plus brain capillaries plus some what do we call them? I've forgotten now. Form the blood-brain barrier. How many of you have heard of the blood-brain barrier before? You should have. You should have heard of the blood-brain barrier. You guys have heard of the blood-brain barrier before, right? Okay, so I believe you must have heard. So let me test you. Who knows the difference between first generation antihistamine and second generation antihistamine? H1. Who knows the difference between first generation antihistamine and second generation antihistamine? Anybody?
I think first generation has a sedative side effect,
Excellent.
and second generation does not have.
Excellent. So can you give me examples of first generation and second generation?
Chlorpheniramine for first generation, and for second generation, loratadine.
Excellent. Is this Omolara?
Abibata.
I wanted to say the person is sounding like Abibato. Sincerely, I was going to say that. Am I mixing up anything? Okay. So, the first generation example is chlorpheniramine. The second generation example is loratadine. Now, in pharmacology, you got that explanation. But there's something that is happening anatomically. You see, the reason why the first generation can sedate, can make you sleep, is because they can cross the blood-brain barrier. But the second generation cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. Anything that will make you sleep must enter your brain. Now, because it is your brain that makes you sleep. Okay? Does it make sense? Now, anything that will make you sleep must enter your brain. It's because your brain shuts down your body and you sleep. That's why the second generation, they are non-sedating. The reason is because they cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. If they can cross the blood-brain barrier, you will sleep. See, if there's an injection of loratadine, if I inject it directly into your brain, you are going to sleep the same way you will sleep if you take chlorpheniramine or ciprofloxacin. But it's because the drug, cetirizine, fexofenadine, they are all second generation antihistamine. They cannot enter the brain. That's why you don't sleep when you take them. All right? Are we on the same page? That's the reason. So they cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is like a protection for your brain. It screens out substances that goes in and out of your brain. Okay? So, and the reason why it does that is because the brain is a sacred organ, so that they put a barrier to what enters the brain. All right? Now, astrocytes, from the name, anytime you hear astro, it means stars, galaxies. Okay, so this cell, they are star-shaped. These astrocytes, they are star-shaped. Okay, like I said, when you hear astro, it means it's like astronauts. Okay, so when you hear astro, it means stars. So these cells are star-shaped. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I've seen a question that says, national exam, the star-shaped cells that form the blood-brain barrier is called dash. You know, but when you know that the word astro means stars or galaxy or astro, associate with it, astronauts, then you'll be able to remember that. Okay, so now oligodendrocytes, that's another supporting cell, glial cell. Now oligodendrocytes forms myelin sheath in the central nervous system, okay, while Schwann cells form myelin in the peripheral nervous system. So let's take that again. You know that thing that covers the axons? I told you they are myelin, okay? So oligodendrocytes form the myelin sheath in the central nervous system. Whereas when we go to the peripheral nervous system, the Schwann cells form the myelin sheath. This is a question that has also come out before, okay? That's why I'm emphasizing it. Oligodendrocytes form myelin sheaths in the CNS, while Schwann cells form myelin sheaths in the PNS. So don't forget. Now, ependyma cells. What do they do? I wish I can show you. You see, in the brain, we have ventricles, okay? Then we have central canal. Central canal is a space. The essence of this is so that this cerebrospinal fluid can flow, okay? So that the cerebrospinal fluid can flow. Okay? So you can see the ventricles here too are spaces. They are spaces for the cerebrospinal fluid to flow. Okay, that's why they are there. All right. So let's wrap up for tonight. Then we'll continue tomorrow. Let's wrap up for tonight. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Now, so the ependyma cells line the ventricles and the central canal. Okay, and what these ependyma cells do is to produce and circulate cerebrospinal fluid. So if a question comes that which cell of the CNS produces cerebrospinal fluid, you now know. Okay, like I said, that a question can come and say which cell produce the cerebrospinal fluid in the CNS. All right. So I want to assume that you now know the cell that does that. It is the ependyma cells. So the last one, we have microglia. Now, the immune cells in the CNS are the microglia cells. They do phagocytosis, they remove pathogens and debris. Okay, this is what this cell do. So we've been able to talk about the 5 types of supporting cells in the nervous system. So let me stop presenting. So let me ask you questions about the supporting cell. So astrocyte, what's the function of the astrocyte? Sister Blessing.
So the only thing I remember is that it has star shape.
Yes. And when I was talking about it, I talked about first generation and second generation antihistamine. So what else can you remember?
Brain-blood barrier.
Yes, it forms the blood-brain barrier. BBB, the blood-brain barrier. It forms the blood-brain barrier. So the astrocytes are star-shaped, then they form blood-brain barrier. Okay, so oligodendrocytes. Who remembers what is the function or what are the functions of oligodendrocytes? Anybody?
They are the myelinated atoms in the CNS.
They form myelin sheaths in the CNS. Okay? They form myelin sheaths in the CNS. So, Schwann cells, what are the functions of the Schwann cells?
They form
myelin sheaths in the PNS.
Yes, forms myelin sheaths in the PNS. So what's the function of the ependyma cells? Ependyma cells.
It produces cerebrospinal fluid.
It is well with your teeth. Don't worry, your teeth will not break in Jesus' name. So you got it right. The ependyma cell forms the cerebrospinal fluid that lubricates the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so and you know I told you that the cerebrospinal fluid flows through what and what? The cerebrospinal fluid flows through the central canal and the ventricles. So you will find the ependyma cells lining the wall of the central canal and the ventricles. It produces cerebrospinal fluid. When we're taking the lecture on fluid, what type of fluid did I say cerebrospinal fluid is? Anybody that can still remember? What type of fluid? Transcellular. You will marry your husband. Transcellular. Okay, so let's go to the last one. Microglia. What's the function of the microglia cells?
Phagocyte.
Yes, they act as the immune cells. Phagocytosis. Excellent.
Debris
Excellent. They remove debris and pathogens.